Welcome to ET Travel World's first digital roundtable. We have with us a distinguished panel of guests today. Mrs. Rupinder Brar, Assistant Director General, Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. Mr. Ashwini Lohani, former CMD, Air India. Mrs. Rani George, Secretary Tourism, Government of Kerala. Mr. Nikhil Desai, Managing Director, Goa Tourism Development Corporation. Mr. Ashish Kishore, Managing Director, India, Amex Global Business Travel, and Mr. Vivek Agarwal, who is a partner in the infrastructure, government, and healthcare at KPMG. First of all, I'd like to thank each one of my speakers for taking time out from their schedule to participate in today's event. Many feel that this topic might be the brightest light yet at the end of the dark tunnel that tourism has been thrown into by the COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent shutting down of borders. It's a truth universally acknowledged that tourism was the first to be hit and will be the last to recover from this pandemic. But before we talk about recovery, let's discuss survival. To survive, we need enough people to be crossing borders and traveling. And for tourism to move from pause to play mode, we feel corporate travel is going to be a significant contributor to the travel statistics. Of course, the cancellation or postponement of long planned conferences, trade shows, and business meetings are an indicator of how big a dent the travel industry has suffered. And while Zoom calls may have overtaken boardrooms, for many, global business travel has not come to an absolute standstill. Some employees are still undertaking essential business trips. According to a GBTA poll, 62% of organizations say they have modified the travel safety and security policies for their employees, and 55% of respondents report the company has instituted new trip approval procedures. Closer home, we'd first like to talk about the resurgence of travel to domestic tourism. And while we are busy shifting gears from Desh Videsh Brahman to Aspas travel, who better than Mr. Ashwini Lohani, the gentleman responsible for coining the term Aspas travel, to throw light on this topic? Mr. Lohani's rich experience in tourism ranges from being the CMD of ITDC, the CMD of Air India, Commissioner and Managing Director of Madhya Pradesh Tourism Development Corporation, and of course, the Chairman of Railway Board. Mr. Lohani, please tell us how you see the resurgence of tourism shaping up in India.
There's so many systems, Zoom, Blue Jeans, and Go to Travel, you get confused with all of them. Well, what I was saying was that tourism is a sector which has taken the biggest hit. Travel has been stopped. Who could have imagined? I'm a railwayman. I could never have imagined in my wildest of my dreams that one day the trains will come to a halt across India for almost 2 months. Unbelievable. Flights have come to a halt. Yesterday I was watching a video of IGIA, and you really get tears in your eyes when you see the eerie silence, the planes lined up on the runway, on the taxi tracks, hundreds of planes which have no business being on the ground. They are on the ground. Well, travel has been affected, tourism has been affected, but life must go on. We shall revive. We shall bounce back. We have to wait for COVID to be over. But there will be changes. We are all talking about a subject, about a scenario which none of us have experienced in the past. So what we are talking is just based on what we perceive things to be, which may or may not be true. I feel there will be a lot of apprehension to travel in the minds of everyone. Because well, I have seen that the flights have been stopped, people have got stuck overseas. I'll always have this in my mind: fear of traveling, fear of leaving my house, going far off. There shall be this apprehension for quite some time to come. Therefore, what I see is I see international travel getting affected in a very large way for some period of time, at least a year or two. People will travel only when they must. First of all, the international flights have to start back. After shutting down a giant flywheel, you have shut it down. So again, start it back and it has to start rotating at 500 RPM per minute, 500 RPM. Well, that sort of effort will be required. It will take some time before international travel can come back. But the mainstay mainstay shall be domestic tourism. And why not? When I joined Ministry of Tourism in 1998, I was told that domestic tourism is the mainstay of India. That time, less than 2 million people used to come to India. But the domestic tourism was in crores. Domestic tourism will stay because one, you'll always be able to come back home. And second, because India has so much to offer. So much to offer. We are one nation, but many worlds. We've got everything. Let us start exploring our own country. Let people from one state go to another state, explore other states. So rich. I worked in Madhya Pradesh and I've also worked in the Ministry of Tourism and I know how rich it is. Even I have not been able to explore the entire state of Madhya Pradesh. We have got Rani from the God's own country. Means it will take a lifetime to explore God's own country, to explore that and to relish that. Let people from one part of the state go to another part of the state. Inter-regional tourism. This is part of what I say Aas-Paas tourism. And what is really more Aas-Paas is intra-regional tourism. People moving within the same region of the state, exploring things. Like when I was in Bhopal, I wanted people of Bhopal to go and see Bhimbetka, which is only 25 kilometers away, but people of Bhopal had not seen that world heritage. There's so much to see. Well, Aas-Paas tourism is something which I expect will move forward. How do people travel? People travel by planes. It will take some time to come back. International travel will take some time to come back. Domestic travel will come back a bit faster, but definitely overall slowly. Trains, train travel has to come back. This is the economic lifeline of the nation also. Is the way people travel. But what I see is, I see a lot of shift happening from the trains, from the air conditioned classes of the trains to the planes. Because initially people will avoid being confined for 24 hours in a same coach with other people rather than covering a distance which they can cover in 2 hours, 1 hour. So I see a shift from train travel to plane travel. I visualize a lot of shift on the roads because there'll be a lot of people, even like me, who'll say, let us travel in our own privacy, let us drive our own cars. I see a lot of shift in people traveling on the roads. But one thing is certain, people would travel only when they must. Whether it's corporate travel, I think corporate travel will also see a lot of change because we have all been exposed to a lot of Zoom and Blue Jeans and GoTo Travel and various other modes of conferencing. But as the main topic of today's seminar, MICE tourism. MICE tourism is something which can really be given a very, very big push by incentivizing it, either giving direct incentives or reducing the taxation. But yes, why should our corporates, Indian corporates, go all around the world having their conferences? And we can attract corporates from around, from, from nations which are close by, also to have the conferences, the entire MICE in India. So that is one segment which has a great future. And all of us know our country is extremely rich in religious tourism, in spiritual tourism, in heritage, in mountains, beaches, in everything. I'm a die-hard optimist. I strongly, we're all waiting for this COVID thing to be over, and I think it will get over fast because the entire country is praying for it. And when that happens, घूमना फिरना तो हम लोग की फितरत है, इंसान की फितरत होती है और आदि काल से लोग भ्रमण करते आए हैं और भ्रमण तो जारी रहेगा. Tourism will again pick up, but what we can do right now is we can be prepared for that. I'll just make one point. Let us go whole hog out in putting a lot of signages and interpretation boards all over the country, all roads, the main highways, the state highways, local roads, tourist places. Just let's plaster the country with signages and interpretation boards because domestic tourism is going to come back in a big way.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lohani. You've raised some really important points about incentivizing tourism. Uh, After Mr. Lohani, I would now want to talk to the states. I think the states play a very important role in taking this forward. Let's turn our focus now on how states are preparing to welcome tourists. Goa has been one of the first states to make it to the green zone. We've heard many stakeholders suggest that Goa must use the green tag to promote tourism. From here, I'd like to hear from Nikhil Desai, the chairman of Goa Tourism Development Corporation, what he has to say about it. Nikhil, please tell us about how Goa has been handling the COVID situation and how the recovery process to restart tourism in general and MICE tourism in particular is going so far. In fact, just this morning, we've carried a story on how Goa is preparing for resumption of flights.
Yes, very good afternoon to you, my fellow panelists, as well as all the members of the public who are participating in this webinar. Well, I'm very pleased to inform that Goa, due to proactive steps and of course with the active cooperation of the citizenry, has definitely managed to step into the green zone much before any other part of the country could do so. We had tourists from over 50 countries. People were crisscrossing the state. They were coming from other parts of the country and of course from all over the world. And indeed, I would not be saying the truth if I claim that we were not concerned about the developments. We saw what happened in China, and we saw what was about to happen in Europe, and definitely we were very concerned. And that's when the state swung into action. We were one of the first states to enforce the lockdown much before the country went into it. Regular monitorings of the border, regular monitoring of the tourists and people, a lot of information was spread within the public, so that any first symptoms noticed among the people could be flagged off and they could be suitably addressed. And when the lockdown actually happened all over the country from 25th of March onwards, I must tell you that all of us took it very seriously here in Goa. You wouldn't see people going out without absolutely it being essential. But at the same time, there was respect for what the government had to say, what our honorable prime minister, what the honorable chief minister had to say, and people took it very seriously. And that helped because any signs of spread were nipped in the bud. And I'm very happy to tell you that we had 7 cases. There was no community transmission, and out of 7 cases, almost 6 were acquired from outside. That is, people who came into Goa from outside, and just one local case of transmission, which was definitely caught well on time. We had activated our health services to its maximum level. Everybody was on their toes: the district administration, the police, the health department officials, the border checkposts, etc. So that helped a lot. And after the 3rd of April, I'm very happy to say that there are no more positive cases in Goa. But the battle is far from over. We cannot rest on our laurels because, as we all know, there has been a movement of people, especially those who were stranded outside the state, within the country and outside the country, and that movement has actually started. So it needs a completely different level of hyperactivity in order to ensure that we again don't go back into the orange or the red zone. Now, having said that, the coming days are going to be full of challenge, not only for Goa, but the entire country. And as we all know, tourism was the first to be affected. And in a state like Goa, where almost 1/3, close to 1/3 of people depend on tourism for their economic livelihood as well as for creation of jobs, close to 35% of all the jobs in Goa are some way or other linked to tourism. So it's a very, very important industry after mining. We do not have much of a manufacturing base, so as to say, but yes, tourism plays a very, very important role. And of course, on account of these developments, all the stakeholders are extremely concerned because not only have people stopped traveling into the state, but that brought a whole gamut of economic activities to a grinding halt. And we do not know when these things will be uplifted, even though Goa is COVID free and there is free movement of people in accordance with the guidelines of the center within the state. But that's not enough, because for a state with a population of 1.5 million, we get close to over something like 90 lakh tourists every year. So you can imagine the proportion of tourists that come into our state is much, much higher than the local population. So the entire service industry, the entire taxation model is dependent on how much consumption happen within the state. So even though Goa is free, it will all depend on how the rest of the country copes up. Especially we have important source markets that come into Goa, especially from Delhi, from Bombay, from major cities in Gujarat, etc., who are very much affected. So we have to realize that these particular areas will take some time to come back to normalcy. And even when they do so, I think for the next 8 to 10 months, everybody will be on their guards. We will have to put standard operating procedures in place, especially for the hospitality industry, so that we do not fritter away our gains that we have done after months of or days of lockdown, which has been a very important strategy in the overall battle against this particular disease. But having said that, now there are signs of travel which are being normalized, which looks like it will be normalized once we manage to probably have this disease under control, with the resumption of flights, with the resumption of rail travel, and with opening of the boundaries. No doubt that'll bring a lot of challenges, but at the same time, all the stakeholders are looking forward very eagerly to see that the tourism activities resume. But certainly the state government as well as the central government, especially the state government, we are very clear that resumption of tourism should not be at the cost of safety and security of the local population as well as our visitors. So which means that unless and until the SOPs are in place, unless and until we are able to screen every visitor who could probably be a source of fresh new source of infection, because we have seen in countries like China, in countries elsewhere, they are already talking about a second wave. So how can tourism be able to cope up with this so-called second wave if at all it happens? So how are we going to cope up with it? Or are we going to see a complete the wheel turning a full cycle and we go towards lockdown after a couple of months? I'm sure none of us want to do that. So in my personal opinion, I think we should be cautiously optimistic. We should not rush forward to opening our boundaries and open resumption of tourism activities as if nothing has happened. And once we are sure that the disease is well under control, that's the time for us to put our best steps forward. Till such time, we could focus on creation of infrastructural facilities, especially taking forward the works which were stopped on account of complete lockdown in the past 2 months or so. And of course, strategizing as to how do we open up, what kind of tourists do we attract. And as far as MICE is concerned, yes, MICE was a very important activity in Goa. Apart from weddings tourism, Goa emerged as one of the key zones for attracting the big fat Indian weddings and a few big ticket weddings from abroad as well. We were also dependent on small and medium meetings, incentives, and conferences that happen in Goa. As I speak to you, with the aid and assistance and central financial assistance under the Swadesh Darshan scheme, I'm very happy to tell the audience that with the support from the tourism ministry, we are in the process of constructing a world-class mini convention center right in the heart of the capital city of Panaji. And no sooner it is completed, I think that will be a game changer as far as hotels and other infrastructural activities around this particular place is concerned. We are looking forward to harnessing the benefits of MICE in a very big way. Apart from that, we have close to about 130 small and medium venues, which with a combined capacity of about 75,000 packs all over the state. And I think we were very well placed to handle small and medium MICE events in Goa. And Goa has been a very popular place because it's excellently connected. We have a lot of ancillary support services, the event management activities, excellent choice of hotels for people to stay, very well connected. It's a safe and secure destination. So we tick the right boxes as far as MICE tourism is concerned. But then the Goa tourism team has been brainstorming as to what next, what after COVID. How do we cope up? How do we attract segments, different segments, be it adventure tourism, be it the wedding segment, be it the MICE tourism segment? How do we do it? We are actively consulting with our stakeholders from the industry. Goa Tourism has also initiated an online survey on COVID and how it is going to affect us, and what is the outlook of the industry, and how are they going to cope up with it, what's going to be their strategy, and what do they expect from the government. So as I speak to you, a lot of this data is flowing in. We are collating all the data and we're trying to put the right strategy forward before the government, so that then and the same part of the SOP procedures we will be also sharing with the Ministry of Tourism, so that the country as a whole can rise up to the occasion and we could be the first of the block. Because so far the world believes that India has done extremely well given our limitations, given the challenges that India faces in the health sector. But despite all this, we have led by example, and I'm sure we should consolidate upon these gains. And as we says, the safety and the livelihood need not be a zero sum game. In fact, we could ensure that along with safety there could also be livelihood for the people, and that's going to be a huge challenge for us to adopt ways and means to make this thing happen in the days to come.
Thank you very much, Nikhil. Another state that has handled the COVID situation in a commendable manner has been Kerala. Mrs. Rani George, the Secretary of Tourism of Kerala, has joined us today. From being the first state in the country to report the COVID 19 cases to having just a handful of positive cases left is a feat that the state of Kerala has achieved with careful planning. Even foreign tourists have been heard lavishing praise on Kerala for the way it has managed the outbreak of the pandemic. Mrs. George, please give us an update about the present situation and how are you working to position Kerala as a MICE destination?
Good afternoon, friends, and thank you, Ms. Payden, for inviting me to this webinar and on the domestic MICE tourism, opportunities for domestic MICE tourism. Right now, as the earlier speakers had pointed out, the world is fighting COVID-19. More than 200 countries across the world are trying to combat this pandemic. And India has done well when compared to most of the other countries. And especially Kerala, I would say from the initial days, we had the first COVID-19 cases towards the end of January, because that were 3 students returning from Wuhan in the earlier stages in January. And at that time itself, immediately, maybe because we had an earlier experience of the Nipah outbreak in 2018, with that experience, the state immediately, the health department of Kerala, under the leadership of our Honorable Chief Minister, started the preventive measures, and all the 3 people were cured of COVID-19. Later on, gradually, when the other countries started getting this COVID-19, Kerala also had a few cases in the beginning, and that were mainly the returnees from abroad. But we had some 1 or 2 cases of foreigners also, foreign arrivals also getting this COVID-19. And at that time, what happened was by the end of February 2019, the tourism sector, the travel and tourism sector came almost to a standstill. Hoteliers, resort owners, tour operators, the small vendors, responsible tourism units, everybody. There was no foreign arrivals, there was no domestic arrivals. So it is no business for anyone and no income for anyone. So this is the situation, present situation for the last 2 months. By the end of February, it started. March was continuing like that, and April, and now we are in May. But for Kerala, tourism crisis is not new. In 2018, as all of you know, we had the massive floods which affected almost all the districts of Kerala. But immediately within a few months, with the strategic planning and the joint efforts of the Department of Tourism and the tourism trade, we came back. And we came back in 2019, which with a high growth rate, almost 8.5% growth rate in the foreign arrivals and 17.8% growth rate in domestic arrivals. It was at this time when we were having such a high growth rate towards the end of 2019 and in the beginning of 2020, January and February, that we were hit by this COVID-19 pandemic. So this crisis is not new for Kerala tourism, but the new crisis of COVID-19, this is of a much higher magnitude. As we all know, this in the crisis with which we were affected in 2018, only Kerala was affected. But this time, in 2020, with COVID-19 pandemic, almost all the source markets of Kerala are affected. That means for business to get back to normal, for travel and tourism to get back to normal, the countries across the world, the other states in India, everybody has to come back to normal. Only then we can overcome this crisis. So this is the present situation. And how do we manage this crisis? Right now, to overcome this crisis, we have prepared a proposal for the revival of the tourism sector in Kerala. We have prepared a package with the short-term, medium-term, and long-term strategies. But it has got financial implications, and the department is working on it. We are having discussions with the other departments, and the finance department as well, so that we can do something about giving livelihood to the sector. So that is the present situation. And after this survival comes the revival. And coming to MICE tourism, Kerala was not in the map of MICE tourism for so many years. We have always been known for leisure tourism and wellness tourism. These were our major products or tourism products for over the years. But for the last 2 years, we have started thinking for new products. And two products which we have identified was, one is MICE tourism and the second is adventure tourism. So last year in 2019, we started thinking how to promote MICE tourism. And the first thing actually we did as a first step was we hosted the annual convention of the India Convention Promotion Bureau. That was in August 2019. So that was a first step. And when I go through the report of the ICPB, I find that Kerala comes in the list of blossoming states when it comes to MICE tourism. And when we think about MICE tourism, what comes to our mind is the major metropolitan cities across India. But Kochi is also Kochi is becoming a fast growing MICE destination during the last 2-3 years. And we are getting world class infrastructure, world class properties, and good connectivity with 4 international airports and international connectivity as well as domestic connectivity and a good road and rail network. We feel that Kerala is also becoming a destination for MICE tourism. But as earlier speakers were mentioning, international MICE tourism is not very easy because the people have to gain confidence for travel. So leisure tourism, it will take much more time. But business, normally it will start after the containment of COVID-19. So business, once this is contained, once the business travel starts, it will have an SOP for many things, for the airlines, for the hotels, for the resorts, everywhere we need SOPs. When the business starts, we can start on the business travel and MICE tourism as well. But since international tourism will take much more time, I think India is much more safer place. So that way domestic MICE is one priority where we can focus upon. But right now there are many challenges for MICE tourism, domestic MICE even. Like this webinar itself, because everybody, the world is on webinars and online sessions, online seminars, everything is happening in the online world. So coming back from this to the real world, from the virtual world, coming back from the virtual world to the real world, that is a change of scenario. So before COVID-19 and after COVID-19, scenario changes. So the change is a must and change is going to happen also. We have to live with it. But at the same time, what I am thinking is that when we are going to promote MICE, how do we position MICE? How do we place MICE? MICE is just not alone business travel. I am saying that it should be an experience. MICE plus leisure. Can we place MICE tourism in that segment where we can put MICE plus leisure in destinations? That is where I think Kerala has a place in this domestic tourism, MICE tourism map. So I would say that a new approach is required for the domestic MICE tourism. It is more than a conference or an exhibition or an event. It should become a destination experience with Kerala having world-class infrastructure, nice accommodation properties, and such other facilities. I would say that it would be an experience for each and everyone coming for an MICE event to Kerala. That is how I think I would promote Kerala for domestic MICE tourism. And along with that, I would say that the infrastructure, properties, accommodation, everything is fine. But not the least, I would say the most important is the professional trade. We always have talked about the public-private partnership in Kerala. That is the success model of Kerala tourism. That is how we came back. That is how we bounced back after the crisis in 2018. So when we are coming to 2020, again, we are working on this model of public-private partnership. And definitely we will come back. Kerala tourism will be coming back. I would say definitely we will come back. We will bounce back. And for MICE tourism, I would say that I'm going to position Kerala in such a way that Kerala would offer the destinations for MICE experience, for MICE experiential tourism. Because when we think about MICE, it is not the cities alone. Of course, Kochi is a major city. Kochi, we have good properties, but it is a city. We can have big conventions and events there, big exhibitions also. We have such good properties also. Last year, I think we had many international conventions, pharmaceutical, medical conventions happening in Kochi. But what do the other destinations in Kerala offer for MICE? It's not only the big conventions and events. We can have small meetings, destination weddings, small incentive meetings. And right now, as we all know, social distancing is the norm. I think we will carry with us for quite some time this social distancing. So we have, I would say that Kerala has got less crowded destinations, beautiful destinations, and it will be less crowded so that people can be very safe, and people would look for safe and hygienic destinations. And Kerala would be offering this safe and hygienic destinations, and with the social distancing norm, we would offer these less crowded destinations for MICE tourism. That is how we would be positioning Kerala tourism, and I expect that. But right now, we cannot predict that when we can start or reopen travel and tourism, because the first priority is right now the public health of our community and Kerala. And for that, I would say that right now we have been containing whatever COVID patients we had, they had recovered. We had 2 cases of COVID patients, one British tourist and an Italian tourist. Both of them were treated with the medical care in Kerala, and they returned very happily, I would say, after recovering from COVID-19 with the medical care in Kerala. And along with that, there were a few other tourists, also British tourists, who were tested positive. They also turned negative after the medical care. And this last 2 months, we have been working on the repatriation of several tourists. We had repatriation flights from Kerala, and we had repatriation flights from other states, and we had to take the standard tourists from Kerala to the other states. And for that, Department of Tourism took the lead, and we repatriated all these guests. And I would say that we even received thank you letters from the various consul generals of the different countries. That was one mission which we had undertaken during the last 2 months. And right now, we are in the process of receiving the Keralites from other states, Keralites from other countries. They are queuing up to come back to Kerala. They feel safe in Kerala, so they want to come back to Kerala. But we are open to that. We are issuing pass for Keralites to come back. And once they come back under the norms of Government of India and the 14 days quarantine, we would be following these norms so that they would also be cured, or they would spread it to the community. And MICE tourism, recently I saw that the Ministry of Tourism has come out with an order providing incentive to tourism. It's a welcome step for MICE tourism. It was not there till now, but that is a welcome step from the Ministry of Tourism as well. And thank you for that. And this is what I would like to say about MICE and Kerala. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. George, and thank you for putting my point forward also, because before I introduce Mrs. Rupinder Brar, I wanted to talk about the Ministry of Tourism and what it has done to boost more international events and conferences in India. And that's a very proactive move made by the MOT. With this latest incentive scheme for the MICE industry. So, Mrs. Brar, please shed light on how is, and Mr. Lohani also talked about incentivizing MICE. So, how are we planning to incentivize the domestic MICE sector and reduce taxation as well?
Good evening to all the viewers and listeners, and also I'm most thankful to ET to provide us the platform for an industry that's obviously going through a lot of turmoil, just like all other industries. The first one to get hit and the last one to revive. That's what is being said. And so I guess we are being caught in the battered state right now. But having said that, I would agree with Mr. Lohani's last statement that he made, that he's an optimist, and I think so are we. That not only are we going to survive, but I think we are all looking at it as an opportunity to question a few things that we were doing, and also repositioning some of the things that we should have been doing, but perhaps inertia was not letting us focus on the opportunities that existed. And that's where, even before I talk of MICE and come back specifically to what ministry is doing for MICE, I think the first effort that we at the ministry are wanting to do is to make travel as a sector safe, because MICE is going to be only a component of the entire travel industry itself being safe. And so the first effort is, of course, even before that is the effort of making people sustain themselves. I'm not going to focus on that part today. But as to what is the way forward for us as a country, as we kind of battle with the turmoil of COVID, the most essential thing that has come as a feedback and as also a learning from COVID is that, yes, we as a country are dealing with it in a manner, hopefully it will continue to be in the manner that it is being done, and the number of cases that are happening in the country are not perhaps as many as we were fearing, and let's hope it remains like that. And I'm also happy to note at, in this forum, which I'm sharing with the Goa and Kerala, that both these states, we've got such excellent feedback from people who were here from other countries and have actually chosen to stay back in these countries. And we got requests for people staying in Goa and in Kerala that our visas are expiring and can we get help from the MHA and MEA, because we are feeling safer in Goa and in Kerala. What could be more encouraging and what could give more promotion to our campaigns in the coming times? I've been in touch with Nikhil, and we are getting inputs from Goa as bites from these tourists who have actually said that, so I think that gives us hope, and that also gives us a confidence that as a country, as a people, we have managed to deal with COVID in a particular manner, which has created that sense of confidence in the travelers. But having said that, we cannot surely deny the impact that COVID is happening all over the world and also in India. So the first and the foremost thing which we hope to come out with in the next few days are the protocols. And the protocols are being devised in consultation with the domain ministries, therefore, which includes health, civil aviation, railways, the state governments, the stakeholders, because everybody who is a stakeholder in tourism industry, the hoteliers, the tour operators, the guides, the traveler himself, all these people would need to be given the SOPs that once the world opens, what are we expected to do as a traveler to ensure safety for one's own self and safety for whoever is visiting your place. And that brings us also to the MICE part of it, that if we have to position ourselves as a country which is safe for MICE, both from the domestic point of view to begin with, and then getting people from overseas also, we will really have to pitch ourselves as a country, as a system which has the ability, which has the wherewithal, which has the awareness to actually deal and be prepared for any such eventuality. So that's why I think what Goa and Kerala both have done are going to be a significant part of our promotional campaigns as we go forward in pitching that sense of confidence in the market, both in the domestic and overseas. But also at the same time, coming to the part which Mr. Lohani started at, I think it's crucial for us to remember that he's mentioning about 1998 when he was here and in the ministry at a time when it was 2 million domestic tourists. I'd be happy to share with him that when we were looking at data yesterday for the domestic trips, and that obviously includes all kinds of trips, we are looking at a figure of 185 crore domestic trips. That gives us a lot of confidence. And it's not just about COVID, but if we go back to some years, including, from 98, when he's recalling his tenure here in the ministry, to the time of the last few years when the Prime Minister has been talking about domestic tourism, and he, in fact, the Honorable PM in his speech yesterday also, amidst all that we are facing, again reminded everybody about the value that tourism has and the ability that we have as a country to leverage, not only because we can showcase culture, heritage, the storytelling and everything that goes with our incredible India, but also the fact that it is a huge employment generator. It creates so much value about ownership of your neighborhood, ownership of your of your entire ecosystem and environment. And again, I think I'm happy to share space with the state like Kerala that has been a pioneer in responsible tourism. I think domestic tourism was something we knew that it has huge potential, but perhaps we were not doing enough on that. And therefore, for us as a ministry, I think it's a great opportunity to leverage that component of the business that was growing, surely growing hugely. But I think we are looking at creating more value in that segment. And therefore, within MICE also, the intention behind creating the incentive scheme is to provide incentive to all our own people to hold their meetings and conventions and events, weddings, of course. I had also started traveling away from India, and people were looking at other countries for wedding destinations. I think it's a time for us to evaluate ourselves as a country, and somewhere not only on the tangible level, but also at the intangible level, where we need to remind ourselves that we need to create the whole concept of nation first. And in that process, we have from the ministry also started the series of webinars that are traversing the length and the breadth of the country. And we just did Goa, and we are trying to do things that are not so apparent about those places. So when we did Goa last week, it was not about the beaches so much, it was not so much about the shacks, but it was about a very different Goa. When we did Kerala on Saturday, we did not do Kovalam or Kumarakoram, we did Nilla River. So we are trying to bring those very different facets of India to all of us. To most of us also, these are parts that we haven't sort of visited. So I would totally agree with Lohani sir that it's an incredible country, and why don't we just start looking at it more closely and more beautifully and own up our country in its entirety. And I would also like to use this platform to share with the viewers that in 2018, as Indians, we have spent close to US dollars 28 billion in traveling and spending overseas. Can we imagine the amount of wealth we can create in our own country if even part of it were to be spent in India? So we're not just talking of leisure, or we're not just talking of culture, but we're actually talking of economically boosting the potential of our own people. And I think there's a lot of thinking that needs to go at various platforms, and I would highly encourage, therefore, everybody who's tuned in to listen to this webinar, and to all my co-panelists, that I think we need to develop this narrative a little bit, I think, with more thrust, that when we have so much potential in our country, there's nothing we don't have. We have the mountains, we have the beaches, we have the national parks, we have the tiger, we have the rhino, everything, just about everything. What is it that we are missing then in choosing that little neighborhood destination, or even that 5-hour or a 6-hour drive away destination in the times to come? So I think that's something I would like to leave as a thought. And I would definitely also just end with a quote, which reminds me partly of what the Honorable PM said last year in one of his speeches that was made. I think it was part of his Mann Ki Baat, that don't always wait for a place to be comfortable or to have all the infrastructure. Create the demand. When we create the demand, the supply will follow. So this is somewhat echoing that sentiment, where Anthony Bourdain wrote, travel isn't always pretty. It isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it hurts. It even breaks your heart. But that's okay. The journey changes you. It should change you. It leaves marks on your memory, on your consciousness, on your heart, and on your body. You take something with you. Hopefully, you leave something good behind. So I would like to end with those words, and keep safe, keep healthy, and dekhte rahiye apna desh is how I would like to end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Brar. You've left us with much more than the 185 crore domestic trips and the US, $28 billion traveling overseas, the revenue. Now I'd request Vivek Agarwal of KPMG to talk about, what should be the focus area in domestic business tourism. Vivek, do you also feel that there'll be a gradual advancement in MICE tourism, maybe perhaps from virtual to hybrid, and then perhaps it'll move to face to face. And if this is going to be a gradual process, how should stakeholders collaborate to build resilience? And how will the right technology and services rebuild confidence in the business ecosystem?
I think I lost you there, but if I could get the gist of your or question was essentially how do we see this panning out, particularly on the my side of it. I just want to
Yes.
take a step back and sort of reiterate some of the point to build that context, right? Mr. Lohani suggested that in mid to long term, of course, and I don't think so there can be any debate about it in terms of the potentials and things coming back to normal. Mr. Desai sort of very, very categorically alluded that even though that is the case, but the focus has to be on short to mid-term, where safety as well as the need to have the environment a lot more in control, but use that time to be able to build certain infrastructure which perhaps were in the fray, and look at newer models, as Ms. George and Ms. Brad said. And I think my view is that particularly all these aspects will have to converge. And it is going to be a phased recovery. I mean, we don't need a fairly deep assessment to be able to understand that this is not going to happen overnight. It is going to happen in sort of what I like to call it a three-phased approach. Uh, the first phase, and we've already seen that, who would have thought that in a period of a month and a half, the entire school infrastructure will be undertaken virtually. And I'm talking about toddlers and kindergartens and grade 1 and 2. But that is the reality, right? So point that I'm trying to sort of allude towards is the first phase is going to be virtual. We've anyway done a lot of, we are starting from a very, very strong position today globally. And when we speak to, as a firm, we are sort of based out of 150 and 160 countries. Uh, uh, when we speak to some of our counterparts, I can very categorically state that India's positioning in the manner that we've been able to handle the situation is today being looked upon even in the developed world. So our starting position is fairly strong. And the idea is that how do we build on to that? How do we ensure that the first phase to second phase, which is more hybrid orientation, is going to be limited? And I'll come to that in the term that you sort of put the question. But just taking a step back into the phase one, which is virtual, which we believe is going to be around 6 to 8 to 10 months, and time period can be debated depending on and the industry and the sector that you come from. The second is going to be more hybrid, where you will have a certain set of certain segment starting to get a lot more comfortable, both from a psyche point of view as well as from a distance point of view. And then third phase eventually, which is what the pre-COVID situation is going to be face to face. And each phase is to our mind is going to be a preparatory phase to the next one. Let me just give you an example on the virtual side, right? Keeping in mind the current circumstances, there are two things. We need to respect the law of social distancing. Mr. Desai, mentioned that, fairly strongly. MICE event, not sure how much social distancing is possible. Because the whole concept and genesis of MICE event is to be informal and to be sort of mingling in a formal as well as in an informal setting. Just as a side note, in fact, I'm not too even comfortable with the term social distancing, because if we are going to promote MICE by suggesting social distancing, I think it's an oxymoron that we are going to use, to be able to pass on a communication. And perhaps we need to be very careful as to what is the terminologies and nomenclatures that we are using when, as a state and as a center, we are devising a strategy, towards this particular segment. Perhaps something like safe distancing, considering the tourism industry is all about social. Anyway, let's not digress and come back to the topic at hand. In the near future, if we want to adhere to this social distancing norm, the MICE events will have to move to a virtual platform. And I'm not saying entirely, because it is given that the absorption level is anyway going to be perhaps a percentage of what the baselines are. I do understand the challenge of taking the industry to a virtual platforms, right? But perhaps the times calls for unusual measures, and it's not infeasible. This phase essentially means integration with technology solutions, capacity building, and curating perhaps best possible virtual experiences. We have such examples today. It is not as if this is going to be a completely greenfield, right? Globally, these examples are being practiced in a very, very select manner. Again, very being mindful that this is only for a short term, which is 8 to 10 months, which then will also become a very critical product offering for the second and the third phase. Uh, Various segments, moving into taking the unorganized market into the MICE ecosystem, which were traditionally not being serviced because you need to look more near term than sort of more overseas, at least perhaps in the 7 to 8 month window. The peak wedding season in India begins from November, right? If the expectation of ours as a practitioners and as a thinkers here is that this year's wedding season is going to be as perhaps we'll see is the same amount of level as it was last year. I think we will need to sort of look at our optimism level there a little bit. But essentially, will there not be weddings? Is a question that we could sort of ask ourselves. And is there newer models and newer product today in the market to facilitate that? That's the question that the industry and the policymakers will need to sort of think through. So, virtual definitely yes. Having a more technology integration solution around it, a little bit of a change on the product mix. Interesting is going to be when we start to move from virtual to hybrid. Now, this will of course come into force to our mind is when the restriction on the movement of people will be lifted partially. When is that going to happen is for all of us to put a wager on. But there would still be some restrictions on the size of gathering, the checks, the precautions, and perhaps the entire life cycle of the event. Hybrid model, as the name suggests, and we don't need to sort of, get into the details of it, but hybrid model will be a combination of definitely virtual and face-to-face experience. It does make, the reason why we sort of anticipating, and these are all hypotheses, and one could be proven wrong, but it does make economic sense to have a broader coverage. While we know that face-to-face coverage will be limited, due to restrictions and other challenges that will be imposed, this phase may also act as as I mentioned, a preparatory phase for phase 3, which is face-to-face. But what is important? Do we have a defined narrative around it? Do we have a defined policy? A lot of states today, and even at a central level, Ms. Barar is here, Mr. Desai is here, Ms. George and Ms. Lohani, all of them are here on the panel. A very targeted post-COVID policy, and how do we put it is something that can be debated, but define a policy. How it is being addressed, what is it that the tourism industry is going to do to be able to now move from the earlier practice to the new practice, ensure a extremely strong, I think extreme strong communication mechanism is going to be the key. As I said, a lot of heavy work has already been done. We are today being seen as one of the nations which are much better prepared and in a sense, much better structure to be able to address this challenge. Now, that's anyway a very strong communication that has already gone out in the overseas market, even in the domestic to that extent. And how do we build on that communication is going to be a key. Plans and SOP, I think it's a no-brainer. Each state, each node of the tourism industry, each stakeholder is today doing a very categorical and a defined SOP, whether it is the hospitality industry, whether it is service provider, food and beverage industry, aviation, travel, train, even the road to that extent. And that is going to be one key aspect. And I'll sort of move to what we are all hoping for, that which is the third phase, which is going to be business as usual, if I may. This is going to be a long-term aim. We need to understand that the nature of industry that the MICE is, as I mentioned earlier, face-to-face interaction will hold paramount value. I would say the parties in any deal has to meet face-to-face and shake hands on a deal. No one will hand you over a check virtually, and that's not going to happen. So to that extent, look at contribution of MICE industry in making Singapore a world financial hub. Would it be possible if there was no face-to-face interaction? Perhaps no, and we all know that. So to that extent, not too worried or critical of the long-term prospects, But what is more, worrisome, and I think we all are sort of geared towards addressing that, is short to midterm. The last concluding question that you put on the resilience and the preparedness will actually be an output of the phase 1 and phase 2, which is virtual and hybrid. If we need to sort of put together into few messages, like we consultants always love to do, some of them is focus areas is of course going to be domestic business tourism. 3 phases that we believe, which is virtual, hybrid, and face to face. Very important that each phase is a preparatory stage for the next one. Technology, which to an extent or to a large extent has eluded the industry, in entirety, will see a huge amount of uptake. And on a lighter note, if I may, I think we've had a fairly insight-driven discussion, and it will sound fairly off-centered coming from me. Avoid the trap of paralysis by analysis. Too much analysis will lead perhaps may not lead us anywhere. Product which we intuitively know that will have an uptake. Of course, there has to be diligence under that. We'll need to get into a on grounding phase. And the last point is consumers will reassess expenses on MICE product. Perhaps the earlier segment, which will then come in the phase 2 to phase 3, we will also need to expand the horizon of MICE definition. Bring in more unorganized sector, which was not necessarily covered under this category. I think I'll sort of conclude my statement there.
Thank you so much, Vivek. You've given us much food for thought. Now that we've heard from the states, the ministry, and the stakeholders, but the most essential link here to consider are the travelers. Many firms have restricted non-essential business travel, and with employers erring on the side of caution given the widespread panic, it's natural for employees to second guess their trip. So, how can travelers get comfortable with traveling again? And what is the role that is being played by the individual, the companies, TMCs, and travel industry suppliers? The traveler, henceforth, I feel, will have more influence than ever about where and when they travel. And the industry as a whole needs to meet those expectations. I'd like Mr. Ashish Kishore, Managing Director, India, American Express Global Business Travel, to help us decode these questions.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, ET, for giving me the opportunity to share my views. Thank you, fellow panelists, of course, esteemed policymakers. Great to have this chat. Good to hear from what you've been sharing, the great work which is done by the Ministry of Tourism, both in Goa, national level, as well as in the Kerala. What I personally believe, being in this trade for a very long time, for almost 20 years plus, that travel is resilient. It will come back. And we cannot at any given point of time define the power of presence, which means, as Vivek was mentioning, you cannot really take away the impact of 2 people physically meeting and shaking hands and doing a deal together. That said, made done, I think the situation is really, really unprecedented, and we all know that. And a lot of work has gone into that, but the challenge is that this is one situation where we don't know what is the end game. There is no exit strategy here, and it's very difficult to have an exit strategy because this crisis is not contained to an area. This crisis has affected entire world, almost all industries, all across. Of course, travel industry is like a bellwether industry. Anybody sneezes anywhere, there's a problem with travel industry. If there is a weather issue, there's an impact on travel industry. But this time, the impact is really severe. And it is so severe that, of course, once the country will open up as a lockdown and the travel will resume, we're going to see a huge impact in the industry financially. And I really don't want to go that journey where how businessmen or the business houses are going to sort of manage themselves running this business. But it's extremely difficult right now to be in travel business as such. What I personally think also is that until now, business was all about demand and supply. As a business guy, you will set up either demand, you will focus on demand, or you focus on supply and do a bridge between the process and servicing via either technology or manpower and start executing that business model and create value. But now, I don't think so that's going to be the place. because traveler is going to play a very important role, or a user is going to play a very important role in that balance of demand and supply. There is a third stakeholder. Earlier, it was relatively easy. You sit down as policymakers, you sit down with demand producers, you sit down with suppliers, create infrastructures and create a policy and expect market to react in accordance with that, with some analysis, some data points and stuff. But this time we've got a very unknown entity. I don't know if I'll be comfortable going out on a conference, even if my company is paying for it. And for most of the organizations around the world, since we are discussing MICE, and even in India, I would actually, Indian organizations are a lot sensitive towards it. In the last 4 or 5 years, duty of care has become a very important aspect of business. Safety, security of the traveler while in transit, in aircraft. There are different policies in travel set, and we as a TMCs are supposed to manage that. But now that whole duty of care would go to a very different extreme, because it's not the duty of care set up by the policymakers or by the corporate. It is a user who's defining whether I am comfortable in Goa or not. Am I comfortable in Kerala or not? It's so good to hear that so many confidence building measures are being taken place in all these destinations. But apart from that, we really need to convince corporates that the destinations are safe to travel. Yes, it's about savings and money and demand and supply. But apart from that, this whole confidence building measure is so very important. And I would urge all the policymakers right now that this has to be the most important communication. On the travel industry side, per se, we've seen as we've engaged with various corporates and various players in the system, we are seeing a lot of anxiety in them as to where do they start from. They all want to start off, as I mentioned earlier, that travel is resilient and people will come back to business. But they don't know what is the origin point, and that is where a strong policy is very important. Starting point is very important for all of us to know, and ensuring that both the safety and security precautions of standard operating processes, as we were talking about, is put in place. Lastly, I think what I would also want to mention that this is the time where probably industry needs maximum government support in all shapes and forms. It is devastated. So the revenues have gone to zero. So any support that can come in form and shape of confidence building measure, any support that can come in form of increasing liquidity, any support that can come in form of ensuring livelihood of people, I think it's so very important right now. In terms of MICE, we are observing early stages, as Vivek mentioned. Obviously, virtual, everybody has gone virtual. But what we are also seeing is conversations where a hybrid or a hub-based MICE models are evolving. And that's where we're working on right now to create some models for our customers, where instead of traveling within the states and within the different destinations, people tend to converge or can converge into, say, in one city, so that some set of people gather in one place and the other set of people gather in another place. And then between them, they do virtual meetings, which means you're not completely off human connect, but you're still having that experience. These are some of the models that we are trying right now. Of course, we don't know what is the end and what would be the uptake of it. It's the good part of the phase right now. We've got time to experiment and think about what is right to happen. But it's very difficult to predict the future right now, what's going to happen. So my request to all the policymakers would be to create policies which support the confidence building measures in the user. I think user is the key right now, not corporates, not policies, finance, infrastructure. I think all that can be controlled, but the personal confidence that am I safe if I'm interacting with another human being, that needs to be addressed. And that's the core conversation that we must focus on. At least at our organization, we are heavily focusing on ensuring that our travelers are safe. We set up policies and work with corporates that when they start traveling, whenever the business travel begins, hopefully, the flights will begin, in a couple of weeks or maybe this week, keeping our fingers crossed. So whenever they happen, we are there in the right shape and form to help corporate provide their duty of care and ensure that the travelers reach their destination, finish their job correctly. So yeah, I would close with that thought.
Thank you, Mr. Kishore. Thank you. Mrs. Brar had to leave for an urgent meeting, but I hope she'll be back soon. We're beginning the question answer sessions now. The first question is for Mr. Lohani, and it says that, with airlines being able to, would they be able to survive if the middle seat is, if they don't sell the middle seat because of whatever the social distancing norms are?
Frankly, I feel that even if you keep the middle seat vacant, the distance between the window seat and the aisle seat is, I think, 16, 17 inches, 18 inches. You'll have to position the passengers, one on one window seat, one on the other window seat, and then keep the rear seat vacant. Only then you can ensure some sort of a social distancing. But then can you fly an airline with that? So less passengers. I think social distancing within an aircraft is, I don't think how is it possible. And keeping the window seat vacant is not going to help. And if you keep seats vacant, it increases the price of the ticket.
There's a question for the states. Everyone wants to know that, how are the states following the hygiene and health protocols, both for Goa and Kerala, as far as, the hotels are concerned?
Well, hygiene and health protocols. One good thing I think which has come out of this entire crisis is it's going to put a whole new level of awareness among the public to follow hygiene norms. It's what we of course in India we had a very good set of norms culturally we were and following them, but then with the onset of this crisis those things have been put into the focus, into the spotlight. So I think it bodes well in the long run to be hygienic, to practice namaste instead of embracing or shaking hand. These are the basics that will eventually come with us and they will stay with us for a long period of time. We couldn't say much about what the hotels are likely to do because, as we all know, in the last 2 months they are all shut. But at the moment, the hoteliers are putting their heads together into evolving a common sort of procedure as and when they start functioning. What are the basic hygiene norms? What are the basic sets of socially acceptable practices that they would be looking to follow, such that they not only protect their businesses but also look after the safety and welfare of the guests. So I think a lot of thought is going in that direction. And norms like as you enter any premises, you have to probably use a sanitizer. These will, when you get into a taxi, you will have to use a sanitizer. When you use a public mode of you will be with a mask. So now people are talking in terms of designer masks. So there's a lot of jugaad also that is happening in terms of sanitization, in terms of masks. Masks are now trying to become like a fashion statement. So I think the world will go through very exciting changes. And I completely agree with Mr. Kishore. You cannot replace travel. Ultimately, it is the free spirited, the real human spirit that wants to go out there, see the world. So I think no sooner this crisis is subdued, people who are bottled up, they will be all looking forward to just unshackle themselves, catch the first flight or train that's available, and I'm sure all of us are looking forward to that day as and when it comes, and that is not very far.
Nikhil, thank you for your point. Mrs. George, would you like to say more on this as far as Kerala is concerned?
Yeah. As far as Kerala is concerned, Kerala tourism has been following the responsible tourism path that everybody knows. We have been working on that for more than 10 years, and we have succeeded it in the responsible tourism path for most of our destinations. And here we are talking about what the traveler wants, what the traveler needs, and how do we make the traveler confident. So they will be looking at for safe and hygienic destinations. So naturally, our first focus, the Kerala tourism, the first focus will be to put in place safe and hygienic destinations. That's not a very difficult proposition for Kerala tourism because we have always been known for that. And as far as responsible tourism is concerned, we would also be putting in place green protocol. And for MICE Tourism, we would be having green protocol for the events, the conferences, exhibitions, anything what we host here in Kerala. That is one proposition to make under the responsible tourism. So these are the main things actually the Kerala tourism would be doing. And as far as the hospitality industry is concerned, they already have SOPs. But with the COVID-19, right now, they have standard operating procedure for the hotels. But as Mr. Nikhil Desai was mentioning, that this mask has become a fashion statement. But I don't know how much a traveler would like to come on a holiday or like to come on a business trip with a mask on. So that is one problem. So with the social distance, instead of social distancing, as Mr. Vivek was saying, that we could say it is safe distancing. As I mentioned earlier, Kerala Tourism would be offering less crowded destinations, safe and hygienic destinations with green protocol. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Judge. This is a question for all the panelists sitting here. The people would want to know whether, there's going to be an impact of COVID-19 on pricing. Will prices go up for enhanced sanitization, or will they go down to attract more tourists?
I can, start, and then perhaps panelists could join in. I think, our assessment has been that as a share of wallet, there will be a rebalancing of pricing. In the short term, perhaps there could be a minor increase to it. But on the one hand, where the travel may become, expensive, there are views that luxuries will become affordable. There are views that, of course, with, government very seriously thinking about it and sort of coming out with stimulus and probably reducing some of the compliance costs as we move along. And that cost eventually will also be passed to the users. So yes, rather than having a binary effect of exponential increase, I would say there is going to be a rebalancing. Certain components will go high and certain components will come down. There may be in an overall situation a tad increase in the spend in the near term. But again, in the mid to long term, I believe we will be able to be in a better situation.
Sure. Thank you, Vivek. Mr. Kishore?
Yeah, so I would see this whole situation as a great opportunity, because in my mind, India is a hyper commoditized market, which eventually leads into not all the stakeholders having enough money to build the wealth or create the next level of service provider or the experience to the traveler. So in the last 10 years, we've just seen value being diminished for almost all products. Our great products like Kerala and Goa and Himachal. We just have excessive demand, but that doesn't create value for the destinations to go up. This is such a great time for us, for all stakeholders, to reprice and price it right. For once, tell the traveler that if you want to go to a nice, safe destination in a nice, safe environment, this is the price that you're going to pay for it. And I honestly believe, because we're going to do a fresh start, repricing and the right pricing should be done now. We've been in such a bad, vicious circle of this hyper commoditization, where everybody's trying to just win the demand by diluting price. There is no value addition by service providing. And this is a great opportunity where we can become a service nation and create value for everybody.
Yes, Nikhil, Mrs. George, would you like to add to it?
Well, I think as far as costing is concerned, it's little too early to put a view on that. But I think due to onset of COVID, India was always, in the last couple of years, we have seen how much India has taken the Swachh Bharat campaign very seriously. So I think with the outbreak of this pandemic, people are going to definitely take the concept of cleanliness and concept of keeping the surroundings clean and hygienic much more seriously. We can already see that happening. People are very, very careful what they are doing when they step out of their homes, not only their personal security, but they also taking enough precautions to see that others are not put at risk and vice versa. So I think that's one thing that is going to happen. And as a country, we are clearly at crossroads now. It is from here that we can evolve into a new product, package it anew, and grow from here, or we just fret and fume about what losses we have undergone through, start blaming each other, and then remain where we are. I think we should take the first option, look up very positively, be very extremely optimistic, incorporate all these changes and move on. This will be the new normal, and the sooner we realize it, it is the better. We shouldn't put a price tag on remaining, staying safe and being hygienic. And if that means a little bit of extra escalation in the costing, that we have to take it in the stride, just like how we end up with new normals once we pass through a crisis. I think this is here, this is going to stay, but it will bode very well for the country in the long run. We will be cleaner, we'll be more hygienic, people will be more prone towards people will be less prone towards spreading such diseases in the days to come, by taking basic precautions and basic steps to keep themselves and their families safe. So I think towards it, and it will also bode well for tourism, because if we are responsible, if we keep ourselves safe and hygienic, then I think it's a win-win opportunity for everybody, completely, society as a whole and individual in particular. So I think we have to look at this crisis as a great opportunity, learn things from here and move on, become more stronger, and probably try to escalate ourselves, pitch ourselves better onto the overall tourism pie as far as the world is concerned. And of course, harness the power of domestic tourism. That is going to be real sustainer for all the states in the coming 1 or 2 years, until the international travel finally picks up to the levels where we left it.
Mrs. George, would you like to add to that?
Yeah. Right now, the community is becoming more and more aware of the preventive and precautionary measures they should take to prevent this pandemic. So naturally, this is becoming an opportunity for the community as a whole, for the society as a whole, to become a clean community or clean destination. So that naturally will contribute for making the destination hygienic and clean. So that itself will be an opportunity for tourism to be promoted. It will be a safe and hygienic destination. I won't say that that will add to the price of the destination or price of the property. But naturally, whatever new things the industry or the hotelier or the resort owner under the SOP provides there, it may come with a value. But this is too early. The time is too early to say on whether it would increase the price of travel.
Thank you so much. We have a lot many questions, but we need to wrap up now because I know I have limited time with all of you. Thank you so much. And as you all have left us with a lot of important points. And as Nikhil said, we need to harness the power of domestic tourism. And of course, the 185 crore domestic trips, that figure is still there in our mind. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining.